Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Wednesday's Bhagavatam class. Welcome to Walk on Wednesday. Walk on Wednesday is the day where we find somebody practicing Bhakti that we think is pretty cool. We pick their brain for a few minutes, and then we dive into the Bhagavatam. But first, we want to welcome Joris. Joris, welcome, Prabhu. Joris is a Californian.
Thank you very much.
He's a Californian, which means it's like 2 a.m. right now. He took a little nap.
Yeah.
He woke up early just to be on the show. I want to thank you. I'm wearing one of his shirts. You see the Haribo, the Thrasher Haribo shirt. Joris is got into Bhakti. He's originally from France, and he's been riding BMX for 18 years, and he's been a pro for 15 years. That means you had 3 awesome years to get pro. That's pretty impressive. Been riding for 18 years, pro for 15. He's traveled everywhere, and that's how he learned about Bhakti, and he ended up in India, found the Gita as it is, and ever since, he's been trying to use all he has to promote Krishna consciousness. And he also promoted Swasti, his very cool, his very cool T-shirt line, which I'm wearing and he's wearing right now. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, you can't see it, but it's a very cool shirt. It's very cool. And I follow him on Instagram. Welcome to the show, Joris.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
What does it mean? What does it mean to be a pro BMX biker? What does that even mean?
Well, yeah, actually, when I started, that's pretty much when I started. When I started to get sponsors, and I didn't have to worry about getting parts and I got sponsored by Nike at that time. So I was getting free shoes and stuff like that. So that's when, I started to make a living out of it, but I was still going to school at that time. So it was like, I was doing both. Only later when BMX took over and I knew I could like just sleep from it and just like I just went for it later.
Now you're a professional biker right now?
Yeah, still. Yeah, never really had to work a regular job. It kind of like I started writing and then sponsors came.
Interesting karma, isn't it? I never had to work a regular job. You know what he does for a living? He rides a bicycle for a living.
Yeah. Interesting. And then, at some point almost like lost like the faith of it kind of before I found Bhakti, because it wasn't enough in itself to keep going. I was like, I knew there was something more in life. So I was almost like relieved when I found the Krishna consciousness movement and understood like what it means to like actually dedicate your life to something, or the ways you can actually dedicate your life spiritually and be yourself. So I ended up using what I already had, which was writing and traveling and meeting people and everything like that in that service, instead of renouncing it as a whole. And it kind of like I blended the two, and it made it like way more interesting even to.
Sure.
There's
I
a
can,
purpose behind it.
I could understand like being in the public eye a lot also.
Yeah.
I bet it could ruin a lot of people, go to their head or get them so self-absorbed. Do you ever see that with people that also become famous at their craft, skateboarding, biking, etc., where it sort of like throws them off keel?
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of times. But also, I feel like in any spheres, whenever you get to like the highest level, you find people that they understand at the higher level also. And usually that's like when people understand spirituality and stuff like that, whenever there's someone that's like very, very good at a certain subject, it does it with passion, with heart, they get to like usually know a lot of, know more stuff than yeah, someone without passion or without I got to, I had an easy, I felt like it was easy for me to like introduce Krishna consciousness to these people through writing because they were already like looking for something different than most people I knew outside. So I felt like the purpose was like um, fulfilled, kind of.
You could possibly have a massive conversion of all the BM. Imagine if all the professional BMX became pro, became Hare Krishnas. Every person is a pro biker.
That's crazy.
I bet they need some spirituality more than anything when people start
Exactly,
becoming
yeah.
very successful. It's
Yeah.
just to balance all that success. Hey, it's just not just like a material well-offness. It's also you're not working. You're doing exactly what you love. There
Yeah.
could be a lot of sort of like perhaps maybe even like boredom with it. You know what I mean? Where you're just sort of
Yeah.
like there's no material pressure any longer.
Yeah. For some reason, when I was like, when I stopped going to school and I realized that I could live my life just from writing, it was actually yeah weird to have that all this time to myself, free to do whatever. But I actually felt like I started learning at that time when I stopped going to school because I could learn everything else that they wouldn't teach us in school.
Huh.
I learned how to cook. I learned like about the crystals, like meditation, all types of like different subjects that never came up in schools, and actually subjects that I would really care about, and like I would dive into them and like and take the time, and actually very fast like started like learning like a lot of stuff I never heard about in a couple years, just from being free to venture and just search by myself like. And I felt like that was something that most people don't never get to have, like boredom, in a sense, boredom or a lot of time to actually find themselves. I feel like we're put in a certain lifestyle where it's all stretched. There's no
It's
room for air, no room for sitting on and lost in your thoughts, and yeah, we might actually dig deeper.
people at a
So it was
young
nice
age people at a young age get in debt and then they just sort of have to work and they
yeah,
never get that breather. I know. I think I
no
feel
room.
grateful.
I
I feel
would have
grateful
like
for the
so much time that I would go in the morning grocery shop for the day, every day almost.
right.
Like I have that amount of time, and I would feel like, well, that's kind of neat, like to be able to like wake up in the morning, wondering, knowing how you're feeling, going out, getting the food you want to eat today, cook it today with their. That takes so much time, and people they just like, there's so much to do that I was like, wow, to have a decent lifestyle, you need so much time that is not that is
You need
taken
to,
away from people.
I'm with you. I'm with you. And why did you land in Long Beach, California?
That's a that's a long story in the end, but I've been coming here a lot. Kind of, my friends are here.
Hmm.
There's a lot of people riding BMX here, makes it easy. Kind of.
There's a lot of devotees there too.
There's a lot of devotees. Yeah, just that's why I kind of like the area for everything. It was just perfect.
Our good
And
friend Madhuri from Yoga 108 is
yeah,
there. That's where I think I
yeah,
met you.
yeah.
And then also the Ahimsa Cafe.
Thanks, Cafe, for sure.
They have a little ashram there, which is like they have incredible programs there. If you're
Yeah,
Long Beach is like Long Beach, California. It's like a little spiritual hub. And then of
It
course
is
your,
with
your
the yoga on the bluff. They do the
yoga on the
free
bluff
yoga.
with Dharma Shakti,
Yeah.
which is
I
incredible.
didn't.
It's like 100
Yeah,
people, 200 people practicing
exactly.
outside over the beach.
And at first, I was a little skeptical even about that yoga thing, because I was like, well, because Prabhupada speaks about like the external yoga, fake yoga that is not really like spiritual. So I was like, that might be that kind of yoga. People just go on the bluff and on the beach and do some yoga and like look fit and like feel nice and everything, but not really dig deeper. Never really digging deeper. And but I ended up doing a kirtan with the yoga teachers there, the two Dharma and her friend that is also teaching there. And I sat there. I think Madhu was there and a few of the other devotees. It was for their anniversary, like their 15 years anniversary for that yoga class or whatever. And she started leading the kirtan. She was like, I'm just gonna chant some invocation mantras or something like that. I didn't know where she was coming from or anything. And she just starts, Om Gyana Timanandasya Gyanandana Sarakya Chakshurun Veritamina. She just started chanting all the invocation mantras from the Hare Krishna, from the ISKCON temples. From the Hare Krishna temples, and then offering obeisances to Prabhupada and like chanting the Panchatattva Maha Mantra. Like, wow. So these people that are doing this free yoga class are actually also in that consciousness. So they're like, I don't know. I thought it was very beautiful that there was these people.
Yeah. Anyway, we are super happy to share your information. Mara, did you put it up on the board? How to check out Joris? I follow him on 2 accounts, and one is Swasti. Can you spell that for everybody, Joris?
Yeah. So it's Swasti, SWA, 3 S's because I couldn't get the single one, TI. SWA, 3 S's, TI. Swasti.
Yeah, SWASSSTI.
Yeah.
Okay. That's great. Mara got that on the board. And that's his t-shirt company. And then also your personal account. Can we follow you personally? Is that private?
Yeah. No, it's open. It's Joris, JORIS 108.
Joris 108, JORIS 108. Man, he's got 71,000 followers. What?
That's why I was every single of my posts you'll see. I write Hare Krishna. There's a way.
Man, you know how to ride a bicycle. Yeah, these are great. These are great. I love these. Thank you so much, Joris. I know I thought I was pretty good on my bicycle, but I realized I don't even know what the hell I'm doing at all, actually.
I used to ride a bike for a living. They called it being a messenger.
You used to ride a bike. Oh, that's right. He was a bike messenger, Kaustubha.
Biking actually taught me a lot. Learning Bhakti later, the rules that the qualities that you need required to be a good bike, that's kind of you already need to ride in a sense of the balance or the tolerance. I was like, well, I got prepared through riding, kind of.
Oh, this is great. Yeah, you got to check out his personal account. He's got all the bike tricks. This is great. I'm going to show my kids this too. All right. Anyway, Joris, I'm lost in your account right now. Everybody, you cannot leave this show to check out Joris's bike tricks. You got to wait till after the show. Okay. I'm dead serious. Joris, thank you for staying up till 2 a.m. Californian time. And I'm looking forward to seeing you when I come back out to Long Beach.
Early October, what's the date for that event you said?
This weekend, we're going up to Northern California, the 1st through the 2nd. Check out mandala.org, MANDALA.org for chant. It's called Chant Camp, California.
All right.
Thank you so much. Listen, I know it's 2 a.m.
Yeah.
You're not obliged to stay awake. You can go to bed now. If you want to stay for the show, you're welcome. But if you want to sign off, we're grateful you were here. And then maybe we could do a giveaway on the show for your shirts. I've got the Harry Bowl Thrasher shirt. You make so many cool shirts. My favorite shirt you make, I just want to share this one. It's the Rolls Royce logo that says Radhe Radhe. That's like
Right,
the
right,
winner.
right.
The Radhe
Yeah.
Radhe Rolls Royce shirt. Someone had to make
Yeah.
that, and I'm glad you
Yeah,
did.
and I didn't have to do much. Yeah, it's like perfect.
You're a genius. Thank you, my friend Joris, and I'm looking
Appreciate
forward to
it.
connecting again. Hari Hari.
Yes, nice to see you. Hare Krishna.
Oh, that was good. You know, I also want to thank our dear friend Danny Kozakowski. Look at this incredible mug I got. It's a Hare Krishna mug, and it says, and she quoted the Partridge Family, which is one of my favorite TV shows. I woke up in love this morning, went to sleep with you on my mind. Obviously, talking about Krishna. Because my son picked it up. He's like, does she love you? I was like, no, it's Krishna she's talking about. I think. But isn't that a beautiful Krishna conscious mug? And she sent a bunch of really cool bookmarks too. So Danny Kozakowski, thank you. If you want to send Raghunath more gifts, you can. You can get my email address. I'm joking. But anyway. All right, let's dive into the Srimad Bhagavatam. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Any announcements you want to make?
I don't have any announcements. Mara, she's got her hand up over there. Is that a hand up?
I wasn't, but I do have announcements. We have a Bhakti recovery group meeting at 1 and a women's Bhakti recovery group tonight at 9:30. And there's also asana class with Trevor Vaughn for our Patreon members at 8 a.m.
Oh, all right, all righty. Okay. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksurun Midatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my teachers are opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances at their lotus feet. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3. Who's got the chapter for me? 26. We had a new chapter?
No. We're just getting started.
25?
Yeah, 25.
25.
Yeah, we read up to 17 yesterday, but maybe we can do a bit of a recap here too. But we got Deva. This is things are getting really serious now in the Bhagavatam here. Because we got.
It getting serious?
Yeah, it's getting serious. Well, because I'm just thinking about it. I'm just thinking that there's a whole kind of theme going on in the Bhagavatam, which is that if you've been reading all of these other works of Srila Vyasadeva, if you've been reading the Vedas, and if you've been reading the Upanishads and Mahabharata and even Bhagavad Gita, and you're still trying to put it all together, right? Like, where does it all lead? What's the most important part? Is there a rhyme or reason? Do you just pick and choose from it? How does it work? And so in this book, Vyasadeva's setting out to kind of put it all, kind of line it all up and put, so that you can see how it works. And so when Devahuti, she's turning to Kapila Dev, and she's asking really important questions. And the verses that we read yesterday were really interesting, right? Where she kind of, or was it even yesterday or the day before, where I think it was yesterday, when she started saying, it's because I identify with the body as I, and I identify with bodily possessions as mine, that I'm feeling all kinds of anxiety in life. But it's so deep, it's so deep. It's that those misconceptions and that programming within the mind is so strong that I need help to understand how to break it or how to become free of it. And so she's turning to Kapila Dev and she's saying, you're like my transcendental I, right? When you explain things, I begin to understand them clearly. I begin to see this world clearly. I begin to see the the fallacy in seeing the world that way. And so she's, really demonstrating the mood of a disciple to a guru, saying, please go further and help me understand this more clearly. And then he begins to speak about like detachment, like what it means, and how one can become free of lust and become free of greed and become free of this type of illusion when one turns from the idea that I'll find my happiness through material things, and one understands that as soon as I try to find that material happiness, material distress comes along with it. So I need to turn within, right? And so now, so what's going to happen is in the following chapters of this canto, there's maybe about 6 chapters. They're going to describe 3 types of yoga, which have been discussed already. Like these things have been discussed in previous books, like the Upanishads, for instance. And it's going to discuss Ashtanga Yoga. Even that's discussed in the Bhagavad Gita as well. And there's in Mahabharata you find, descriptions of that as well. So Ashtanga Yoga, which is the yoga where you try to settle the mind through yogic practice and go into very deep, still mind. You can begin to experience the nature of the self. And then there's also Jnana Yoga, which has been described previously in the Vedic literatures. And that's a yoga where, through analysis, you analyze all your material attachments and you break each one. You combine renunciation. Actually, both of those paths involve renunciation, where you kind of leave home and you go off into the forest and so on. And he's also going to describe Bhakti-yoga, which is of a different nature, right? The same knowledge and detachment are there, but it's all growing out of one's attachment, you could say, or one's connection to God. So all 3 of these are going to be described. All 3 of Kapil Dev's going to spend chapters describing all 3 of these yogas. But what he's going to do here, which may not have been so clear and explicit in previous texts, is he's going to show that the value of these, the completion or the full blossoming of these yogas takes place in relation to devotion. Like the Ashtanga yogis going off into the forest and meditating, but meditating on Vishnu, with a sense of love. Or the Jnana yogis trying to break all their material attachments, but they're breaking those attachments so that they can offer themselves entirely to God. And so this is going to become clarified, and then, but especially that path of Bhakti Yoga is going to be really emphasized here. So it's showing how devotion is important in all the different paths, and devotion finds its completion in the path of Bhakti Yoga. So all the paths ultimately lead there. That's going to become explicitly stated here in these chapters, where Vyasadeva, he left that unclear. Remember when we go back to the first canto, remember when we first heard about Vyasadeva and where his mind was at, Raghu?
Yep.
Where was he at?
You hot seated me? You hot seated me about Vyasadeva?
I've been talking.
I'll tell you where he was at. I'll
passing
tell
it
you where
over. Passing the mic.
Vyasadeva was, he'd done so much work on his spiritual life, and his service was to compile truth.
Yeah.
And yet he felt a little bit sort of like, I did all this work. I put in my time. I followed Dharma. I meditate. Why is there something missing? I mean, we get this way in material life sometimes. Like, I know something's missing. I have it all together. You could be a pro biker and feel like, I have it all together. I'm a master in my field, but something's missing. Even take that up a notch to you understand all Vedic principles, spiritual truths. You're complete with all wisdom. You're a guru, but something's missing. What is the final cherry on the cake? That is to hear and chant and remember these pastimes of the personality of Godhead. And so it's actually, sometimes people even will say, oh yeah, you guys into bhakti, you read all these stories to give some philosophical truth. Yes. And also no. We actually read the stories because it's the stories in themselves that actually are soul satisfying. It's not just that they give you some, Krishna kills the big snake demon to teach us about envy in our hearts. Yeah, you might extract some wisdom from there, and it might be peppered with wisdom in the purports, but the stories themselves resonate with what we actually are as spiritual beings, believe it or not. Now, you might say, well, I just like the philosophy. Okay, good. and you like this, and it comes with a fantastic story. But actually, the stories themselves actually nourish us, and the pastimes nourish us. And that's why it's important also to hear the stories, hear Krishna Lila, and that's how this whole book culminates in all these pastimes of Krishna, and they never get old. We've been hearing these stories since we were brand new into this stuff, and it never gets old.
Right. Okay.
So that, lamentation, right?
Yeah. So now if we look at the text, let's see, it's like 16 through 18, and we read 2 of those yesterday. We can see that, or even we go back to 15. Let's just read these quick, right? We're talking about the role of the mind in yoga. And so text 15 says, the stage in which the consciousness of the living entity is attracted by the 3 modes of material nature is called conditioned life, right? When your mind has that conception that I'm finding my happiness through material things, that's conditioned life. But when the same consciousness is attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is situated in the consciousness of liberation. So the mind is like the pivot, right? It's like which way we turn that mind is going to ultimately lead to true happiness, or this kind of happiness mixed with distress, which is a constant roller coaster, which is the world that most of us are living in. And then in text 16, it said, when one is completely cleansed of the impurities of lust and greed produced from the false identification of the body as I and bodily possessions as mine, one's mind becomes purified, and in that pure state, they transcend the stage of so-called material happiness and distress. And then we read this interesting text last, which was text 17, which gives us a clear understanding of who we are. It says at that time, and this is what becomes revealed when you change that focus. We got to realize these aren't just like this information. It's not just like for some super advanced yogis that are like living a whole nother life or something like that. This is meant for us to apply in our life, right? Like I can turn. I could become convinced that I'm not finding my true happiness through, this consciousness of I and mine, and I've got to find a way to turn within. And if you do, then this is what you begin to see. You begin to understand yourself, and this is how you understand yourself. It says, at that time, the soul can see themselves to be transcendental to material existence and always self-effulgent. So like I am spirit, right? I am made of spiritual energy. I'm not this body, which is growing old and has so many problems and so on. I'm beyond all this. And at the same time, 2 more things are mentioned. Never fragmented, although very minute in size. So I'm just one little speck in the universe. I'm a little spark of spiritual energy. I'm the energy of God. But I'm not God that's been broken and that's going to merge back into God, right? I'm never fragmented. And so it's that you begin to understand who you are, what your true situation is. And now we move forward. We're about to hit some like really crucial, important verses from Bhagavatam that are often quoted. And now Bhakti itself, Kapil Dev is going to begin to put it forward as like, this path is extremely powerful, and he's going to begin to describe how it's practiced. Text 18.
Text 18. In that position of self-realization, by practice of knowledge and renunciation in bhakti, one sees everything in the right perspective. He becomes indifferent to material existence, and the material influence acts less powerfully upon him.
Yeah. So that's
right?
Yeah. This is
vantage point that we're seeing the world at. I think I'm experiencing this. This stuff's right in my face going on in my situation in my life. But if I'm looking at things from the vantage point, like right in front of my nose, things can seem troublesome, or things can seem safe. When you zoom out of our picture, and this is what the Bhagavatam regularly does, encourages us to zoom the hell out, zoom way back, and see who we are, where we're going, what's the biggest picture of our life. And when we see it in that perspective, it helps us make better choices. Yoga system's all about making better choices because we understand we're creating new bodies, right? If I don't make a good choice, I create I create a complicated body, a complicated mind going forward. And so if I zoom out, I say, oh, okay, this thing that looks monumental right in front of my face, 3 years, this is going to be nothing. And I'm worrying about it day and night. I'm investing so much time in worry and stress, killing my immune system, wrecking my joy. And it's not even based in reality. It's based in a temporary reality right in front of my face. Zoom way back and see life for what it is. Then you could even zoom it out even more. Ever see like they zoom out of your town, then they zoom out of your city, then they zoom out of your state, and they're like, then your little globe. And they're like, oh, I get it. That we got to zoom that far out sometimes just to get perspective of what is going on. So yeah, it's these vantage points make us see things much differently, even though, Kaustubha's seeing one thing, I'm seeing the exact same thing, but because he's zoomed out, it's not affecting him as much.
Well, we all zoom out, Raghu. I appreciate your zoomed out perspective. Why don't you read the commentary on this?
I'm all right. This is 18, right?
Yes.
Okay. As the contamination of the germs of a particular disease can influence a weaker person, similarly, the influence of the material nature or illusory energy can act on the weaker or conditioned soul, but not on the liberated soul. Ooh, I like that like analogy, right?
Like an Ayurveda kind of, like the whole theory in Ayurveda is that if your immune system is healthy, you can be exposed to the same germs as someone else, but they're not going to affect you.
Sure.
Right? And so here it's saying that if we're conditioned and weak, everywhere we're going, that illusory energy is just crushing us. But if we get that that consciousness of self-realization, we can pass through this world and it's not affecting us. And this is what Devahuti was asking for.
I'm wondering when that's going to kick in with me.
It's
like, why isn't that kicking in yet? Why am I still?
Because look at you. You're going through so much rough stuff right now. But look, you're happy. You're doing good. Keep going.
I wake up happy. I'm happy in the morning.
Okay. Self-realization.
Continuing on.
Yeah.
One understands his constitutional
self-realization.
Okay. But not the liberated soul. Self-realization is the position of the liberated state. Self-realization is the position of the liberated state. One understands its constitutional position by knowledge and vairagya. Vairagya means like a detachment from the material things. Oh, it says it right there.
Right there, renunciation. Yeah.
Without knowledge, one cannot have realization. The realization that one is the infinitesimal part and parcel of the Supreme Spirit makes them unattached to material conditioned life. That is the beautiful, like, I am spirit. My joy comes from spiritual things. Once we get convinced of that, it creates a separation from material conditioned life. That is the beginning of bhakti. Unless one is liberated from material contamination, one cannot engage himself in bhakti of the devotional service of the Lord. In this verse, it is therefore stated, jnana vairagya yuktena. Yeah. When one is in full knowledge of one's constitutional position and is in the renounced order of life, detached from material attraction, then by pure bhakti yuktena, they can engage himself as a loving servant of the Lord. Paripashyati means that he can see everything in its right perspective. Then the influence of material nature becomes almost nil. This is also confirmed in the Gita, Brahmabhuta Prasanatma. When one is self-realized, he becomes happy and free from the influence of material nature. And at that time, he is freed from lamentation and hankering. Right? Lamentation means remembering the past and the good old days, and hankering from the future, which is basically cheating us out of the now. The Lord states, someone said that to me first time I came to the temple. Yeah. They said, the materialist, it was Jai Dwaita Swami. He said, the materialist is constantly hankering for the future and lamenting for the past. And I thought, Oh, that's what I do every moment. That's my entire existence, is hoping for the next day and lamenting over the old days.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's worse. Sometimes it's like, oh, the past sucked. And sometimes the futures.
Well, that's lamentation. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I guess that's lamentation too.
And so,
Is it?
so of course I lament. Oh my God, everything sucks. You know, it's like, but
Yeah.
but you know, so Prabhupada's, he's quoting from this Bhagavad Gita verse, you know, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma, you know, that nasochati nakangshati, the state, you know, of Brahma Bhuta state, when one's mind's been kind of elevated to that spiritual level, then there's no more hankering and there's no more lamentation. Nasochati nakangshati. Samasarveshu bhuteshu, and then I see every living being equally, right? Mad bhaktim labate param, and that's achieved through bhakti, right? Through this, it's all, you know, when we think of like religion and we think, okay, it's about surrendering to some God and then you have to accept that and then you're saved. This isn't like that, you know. It's like I realize my connection to this divine source from which everything is coming from, through which everything is connected. And when I see those connections, and I see that reality from that zoomed out perspective, my lamentation disappears and I see everyone equally. You know, it's just a different way of thinking about devotion or like consciousness of God, right? It's there's like a science behind it, and there's a logic behind it that kind of clicks in and makes sense. It's not just saying, just accept God and bow down and you're saved. There's a whole yoga to it, and so that's being expressed in this verse, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma, and Srila Prabhupada's tying it into this one. All right.
Should we go on to the next verse?
Yeah, we can continue. There's some nice verses coming up now.
All right. This is
Text 19.
Text 19. Perfection in self-realization cannot be attained by any kind of yogi unless they engage in bhakti or devotional service to the personality of Godhead, for that is the only auspicious path.
Okay.
Well, that sounds a little sectarian.
Well, what he's saying is he's saying he's saying that the other paths, and in this context, it's going to be the path of Ashtanga Yoga or the path of Jnana Yoga. He's not saying that they're not real, but he's saying if you remove the devotional element from them, then it's not going to lead to, and this was established at the beginning of Bhagavatam, Atma Supersiddhi, complete satisfaction of the self. You might find peace, and that'll be temporary. You might find attachment, and that'll be temporary. But it hasn't led to the full, in other words, yoga is meant to lead to the full uncovering of the nature of the self, right?
I like the way you said that.
Yeah, and so when you get there, what you find is that by nature, you're connected to God. By nature, you're designed for devotion or for love to God and through God, through everything. So let's uncover that fully. Let's not stop halfway. Let's not find peace. You see, there's this important idea is that my full spiritual potential is love. And that needs to be uncovered through yoga. And if you don't get there, then you haven't achieved the goal of yoga. So this verse, it's again, this is Vyasadeva's clearing everything up. If you haven't picked up on this earlier by reading Upanishads and so on, he's going to make it really clear right now. He's going to do it by speaking, by showing this conversation between Kapiladeva and Devahuti, where he's making it really clear here. He's saying that, it's through bhakti that these other yogis become fulfilled, or they become powerful. You can practice bhakti directly itself, or if you're practicing these other yogas, when they're infused with bhakti, then their full value is realized.
This is the difference. We don't want peace. We want love. Yeah, there's two different things.
We're happy about peace.
We like peace. We're okay if you're peaceful, but we don't want peaceful. We want love. And the interesting thing is, if you've ever been in love, it's not that peaceful. It's it's filled with highs and lows and mixing things up, and you're wrestling around and feeling great and crying and laughing. That's love. And that is actually the nature of the heart. Peace just means clear the clutter out of my life. I got a lot of clutter. I got a lot of anxiety. I'm a little stressed out. My body is giving me pain. What are some tools I can use to be peaceful? Right?
Yeah.
But underneath peace, there is the soul. And the soul wants yoga. The soul wants to reconnect with source. That reconnection is what we've lost when we've taken birth in the material samsara. And so this whole system is, you will like step right over peace and get right into joy.
Yeah, it's interesting because when we read Bhagavatam, we're going to see that people are doing yoga for all different kind of reasons. Like we get Hiranyakashipu, he's doing yoga, right? He's standing on his toes. He's got his arms extended in the air, and he's holding that position and controlling his breathing for like a very long time. But his motive is inauspicious.
Yeah,
right?
Cindy Lunsford does that. Ever see her do this yoga? Anybody follow Cindy Lunsford? She stands on her tiptoes and puts her hands in the air for mystical powers, I think.
Is that what she's doing? But
no, she does it for
she's
bhakti.
connecting it with devotion, yeah.
Yes.
But Hiranyakashipu, he was doing for the exact opposite reasons. He wanted power. He wanted control. He actually wanted independence from God. He was doing it to gain independent power. And people, and that's in the kind of an extreme example, like, right? Like I'm doing it because I hate God, and I want to take over everything. I hate God and I hate everybody that's devoted to God, and I want more power so that I can take control of the universe.
Yeah.
That's like extremely inauspicious. What's being said here is that even these paths of yoga, these are techniques, right? Techniques. And one can perform these techniques still with the mood of being independent from my source. I still want to be disconnected. So I want to find peace away from God. I want to find detachment, disconnected from God. It's saying here that you can engage in the practices, and they're effective, but you're not going to find the perfection in self-realization through that kind of yoga. You're going to find detachment, you're going to find some peace, but you're not going to find the perfection of the yoga until you connect it with God. And when I say that, again, let's try not to understand it in like in a quote-unquote religious context. Let's try to understand it in a quote-unquote spiritual context. In other words, you are made of the energy of God. You by nature you have that connection. It's just like the leaf is connected to the tree. That if the leaf is like, I want to find my satisfaction disconnected from the tree, it can break off and do all the yoga processes it wants, but its only auspicious path is to be connected to the tree. And so that's kind of what's being said here. Perfection and self-realization cannot be attained by any kind of yogi unless they engage in devotional service to the Supreme, for that is the only auspicious path. Just think of the leaf and the tree, and that's what it's saying. It's not sectarian. It's saying even if by your conditioning you're very inclined to Ashtanga Yoga, there's
renunciation.
Renunciation in different ways. One can be Ashtanga, one could be like Jnana, right? Like again, we got to bring Yogi Charu back on the show, I think, but remember when we had him? Here's a guy, a friend of ours. He's got these like yogi samskars, right? He's got like the conditioning of a yogi that comes from previous lives, where you like to sit still for 24 hours and count every breath. Where you like...
That's fun. Let's do that.
I'm into that. You like to fast for 40 days at a time. You like to wander up into the mountains, and sit with those yogis and do the exercises that they do.
Zip line.
Yeah. So you zip line, is that what you're doing up there?
No.
Okay.
I thought that's why we were wandering to the mountains, to get to the zip line. No.
Oh, okay. So you may have that kind of conditioning. It's saying you can engage that kind of conditioning in the most auspicious way when you're doing it to find God, when you're doing it to reconnect with God. You can do it to find peace. It's okay, but you're not going to find the perfection of the yoga that way. It's got to be infused with the mood of bhakti. Even those other paths, then they'll find their completion. They'll become truly auspicious.
The whole Bhagavatam starts with these sages of Namasaranya who have peace. They're all liberated souls. It's not like they're fishermen and they're engaging in crazy activities and then they find Jesus. They're already liberated souls. They're already
very detached, very
completely realized mukti,
very peaceful. Yeah,
peaceful. And then they realize there's something more, and they go to Sutta Goswami, and they ask these questions.
Yeah, he clarifies it. Yeah. All right, so now
Alrighty.
how is this practiced? How do you practice bhakti? What does it look like?
Yeah.
We're going to start to hear more about that now.
Next verse, sir.
This is a big verse right here. It's a big verse, but it's going to frame the following verse, which is a really big verse.
It's getting bigger. It's bigger. Prasangam arjaram pasam. Okay. Every learned man knows very well that attachment for the material is the greatest entanglement of the spirit soul.
Now, this is big right here.
Read that again. Don't you hate
Okay.
when people write that on Instagram post? Read that again. It's like,
Do they?
tell me to read that again. Read that again.
You don't like people telling you what to do.
Read.
You okay? There's some secret humor there that I don't get, but as long as you're
Oh
happy.
man, you don't believe yesterday after the show, I could not, after we got off the show, after we closed everything up, I
Yeah.
could not stop laughing about when we were talking about Bach the Jiminy Cricket. Do you remember that?
I do.
The Anima City, where you become really small like a cricket. Okay. Sorry about that, guys.
Read it again. Later.
Every learned man knows very well that attachment for the material is the greatest entanglement of the spirit soul.
Okay, but now this is the thing. What's going to happen right here in the rest of this verse? This can be a game changer. This can be an eye opener because it's not simply through detachment that one finds complete satisfaction of the soul. You detach from something so that you can attach to something else.
There we go.
Okay.
That's the magic. That's the trick right there.
Yeah. So
We're switching attachments. The train's still moving. It's just not going south anymore. The switch, now it's going north.
right.
It's not the train has stopped.
Right. So it's not that attachment is the problem. It's a question of what you're attached to.
I think I should tease out that analogy. The train doesn't stop,
Tease it out. Okay.
right? What do you think? It doesn't go south. It goes north now. It keeps
Mhm.
going. Like that?
Well, you already said that. That didn't tease it out.
No, I
You
know.
just-
I'm just saying it again, but I think
Okay.
we can
You
keep
want to
that.
read that again? Okay.
Work with that. Read that again.
Okay. All right, so let's finish this verse. But
I've got allergies, man. As soon as I landed, I got allergies. I can't wait to get to California.
okay, but
But
that same. Okay, let's start this verse over again.
all right, every learned
Let's-
man knows very well that attachment for the material is the greatest entanglement of the spirit soul. But the same attachment, when applied to self-realized devotees, opens the door of liberation.
Okay.
This is good attachment. This is positive attachment. This is spiritual attachment. This is what we're looking for, not detachment from everything. It's detachment from the material, attachment to the spiritual. That's the difference.
That's the difference. And so here the key to bhakti is being laid out. This is yoga we're given a vision of yoga here that may be different to what like a lot of people think of when they think of yoga. Most people are thinking of asana when they think of yoga, right?
Yeah.
Bending and stretching. And some people that are a little deeper into it or have a little more understanding, they may understand that they may think of yoga as it's a process that it involves asana, but it also involves breathing. It also involves a philosophy and a lifestyle. And you do those practices to find peace. But here it's being said, it's something that like for a lot of people, they wouldn't even think of attachment to sadhus, right? You take your attachment to material things and then you turn it to people that are deeply spiritually realized and you become attached to them. And this is interesting because it's like say when you and I first started going to India, right? And we would start to meet people that are yogis. But they weren't necessarily like what you think of when you think of a yogi, like a bearded, lean, renunciate or something like that. But it would be like you'd meet like say a woman in a kitchen, right? Like she's like heavyweight, like big, right? She's in her like living room and they're making you like even said like when you meet them in America, right? Like you get invited to someone's home, and it's some elderly Indian woman. And she's got a little temple in her home, and she's in the kitchen making prasadam. And she's making prasadam, even like we're like these Western people that are like when we were brahmacharis, we were monks, right? We get invited to someone's home.
Yeah.
And then they're like, they just like from the softness of their heart, they're like, if this person's dedicated their life to Krishna, well, then I'm going to serve them. Even though we're like totally unqualified. Like they were like much more advanced
Incredibly
spiritually,
evolved householders.
Yeah.
But because their consciousness is different.
Yeah.
And sometimes when our consciousness is on our stretching, on our handstands, on our back bends, it's really just on our body. It's not necessarily on, I'm here to give love. I'm here to give service. I'm here to purify my mind. It could be complete materialism. But yeah, you're right. That was one of the fun things about being a monk. We'd get invited to like Indian families' homes in America and like Pennsylvania or somewhere like that. And they just show us how to like prepare food with love, serve with love, and like very high-minded people. It was very impressive.
That's the thing. And so it appears like, oh, that's like a jolly, fat Indian lady. That's not a yogi, right? Or yogini.
Wrong.
Wrong, yeah.
Highest yogi.
Yeah, that heart is pure. The mind is pure. They become detached. They've let go of all of these kind of material anxiety that everybody else has. And they have this attitude that's so like, it's so expansive that, again, simple and pure and humble, that they say, oh, if this 20-year-old, a Western person that's just brand new to this path has decided, I'm going to dedicate myself to the path of bhakti, then in their mind, they're like, look how this person's given up everything for Krishna. Let me serve them. And then when they serve with real affection, with real love, with real detachment, with actually deep spirituality, right? Like where that mind is not absorbed in selfishness at all, which is really the key, right? And it's entirely like, let me give. And so they're giving to Krishna, right? They're in there and they're cooking. They take their skills, right? They're such great cooks, and they're like, they've learned this skill, and they've learned that through this skill, I can touch the hearts of people. I can touch the heart of God. And so they cook, and they cook with devotion. They offer to Krishna, and then they serve it out, right? And they want to see you happy. And to them, it's something different than just, it is hospitality. But it's hospitality that has the deepest spiritual connection, and you see they've realized something. You look at this person, you say they're not detached. They have a house, they're eating well. They like to cook all kind of delicacies. Whatever they might have, they don't seem like the quote unquote yogi, but actually they have complete detachment because their attachment to God has become so strong, and because, as this verse is saying, their attachments to the sadhus, their attachments to the devotees has become very deep. And so tomorrow when we come back, we're going to read the big verse, which is, okay, if connection to sadhus, to spiritual people, is the key to yoga, well then how do I understand who is sadhu?
Prabhu, you made this great point. I want to just rally on this great point. What was the great point? I just forgot.
What was it?
Oh man, come on. It was so good.
Indian ladies cooking, is attached to Krishna.
Detached. Oh, you said they're cooking it pleases the heart of God.
Yeah.
Their cooking pleases the heart of God. It's like, you tend to think like Krishna is like this cartoon character. Krishna, I saw that painted picture of Krishna in a book. Krishna is that stone idol. No, Krishna is a being, a reciprocal being that you actually please his heart. And Krishna is actually touched. And he is touched, and then he reciprocates. It's not like you're worshiping a wood stove or a table or a vehicle. You're worshiping a being that actually has a reciprocal relationship, that has a heart, and that cares about your heart. And that's probably why we're here at 5 a.m. every day, because we're actually in some type of reciprocal relationship with him. He's dancing with us.
Like it. I'm with you. Mara? Takeaways?
All right. Yeah.
What do you guys? So if you're new to the show, we do takeaways. Takeaways are little nuggets, little gems, little gem nuggets that you can put in your pocket, take with you, apply to your day, perhaps. Maybe write it down on your phone, take a picture, tag us, Wisdom of the Sages, and then we can reshare it, tag you. Maybe grab some followers out of it. Who knows?
All right.
What do you got, Mar?
zoom way out to see things as they are and make better choices.
Zoom way out. Yeah.
The materialist is always lamenting or hankering.
True.
Yeah.
Yoga is meant to lead to the full uncovering of the nature of the self.
It sure is.
My full spiritual potential is love.
Oh, I like that one. That's
Step
a
o-
neck
Yeah, that's a-
tattoo right there. My
It's good.
full spiritual.
You get it. Go ahead, do that one. You can get a rug on the neck.
Step over peace and detachment and go right to joy.
Oh, me likey.
You won't find connection until you find connection with God. Bhakti is the perfection of yoga. Detach from the material and attach to the spiritual. And
Nice.
serve with deep spirituality to touch the heart of God.
What happened to we don't want peace, we want love? I thought that was a good
Step
one.
step over peace and go right to joy. All right.
Close.
I'm going to start writing my own hashtags.
You fired me, Raghu.
How about the mind is the pivot? The mind is
I
the
missed
pivot.
that one. Nico Stuber, like, what about this one that I said? No, what about this one that I
The
said?
one that I said.
Oh, God. Oh, thanks everybody for joining us.
Sweet
And
Baby
thanks for
Krishna
Joris. Joris was great. You know what? I really want to do Sweet Baby Krishna, especially because Karuna wants me to do it. I've got a lot of family responsibilities, but I want to do it. How can I do it?
Just do it. What do you mean? How can I do it?
All right, let's
It
do
said,
it.
like,
Let's do it. What
it's
time?
at nighttime, right?
Let's do it 8 o'clock.
8 p.m. Eastern
8 o'clock
time.
tonight. Just
Sweet
first, we'll have a
Baby
short one.
Krishna.
A half hour. Sweet Baby Krishna Patreon members. If you are not a Patreon member, that's how you can support what we're doing. So if you like what we're doing, you give something from your heart. Whatever you want to give, you can give a pesos, you can give a ruble, you can give a kroner, you can give a euro, you can, Matilda's from Sweden, so they have kroners. If you're from Europe, you give
think they have
give
euros.
a French, you give a franc, a Swiss franc, or you give a Bitcoin. But you give whatever you want for your monthly contribution. Thank you so much. And then you get access into our secret Patreon party, where we're going to have Sweet Baby Krishna tonight at 8 o'clock.
When it's a short one, you call it Little Sweet Baby Krishna.
We call it Chota Krishna. Chota Baby Krishna. Hands up in the air, everybody. It's time to sing and dance, because dancing connects us with our love. See, if you're sitting peacefully, you can't dance. But when you dance,
Good dance.
then there's a
peacefully.
lot of love that comes out of there. Isn't that true?
That's true. That's
Peace
true.
means you just sit down, give me some peaceful. But this is love.